This is about us coming together and focusing on how we can make a change and how we can come together and be united. I don't see how one man in Jerry's position or any of those types of positions can make a change. The only thing they can do is give us money to make change. What kind of help do we need from Jerry? We need to stand on our own 2 feet, be the man we are supposed to be, and build foundations and build centers to help our youth. Okay, Stephen A., I'll start with you. What's your reaction to DeMarcus Lawrence there?
Well, I respectfully submit that I'm disappointed with what he had to say. And I say respectfully because it's not like he's off kilter in terms of the kind of things he's pointing to in terms of individual responsibility, community responsibility as well, and what we need to do for ourselves as opposed to leaving it to somebody else to do for us. I certainly understand that level of thinking, and I shared that to some degree. But I think that it's important to recognize the fact that this is a player for the Dallas Cowboys. During the whole Colin Kaepernick situation, it was Jerry Jones that stood front and center and was talking about none of his players will kneel, his players will stand, his players will stand. They will not disrespect our flag, all of these kind of things. Even though Jerry Jones knew good and damn well it wasn't about patriotism, it wasn't about respect for the flag, that Colin Kaepernick was taking the knee to bring attention to racial oppression, racial inequality, brutality on the part of police officers, et cetera, et cetera. Jerry Jones knew that but still made the statement that he made. When Jerry Jones took a knee in solidarity with the players was on Thursday Night Football because the president had showed up at a rally in Alabama and basically said that he'd fire all those Sunday wishes that they would be fired. And so the players came together and rallied to some degree in favor of Colin Kaepernick at that particular juncture for about a week or so. And so if you're DeMarcus Lawrence and you're playing for an owner, it's not about a guy like Jerry Jones. It's not about hearing from an owner per se, Max and Molly. It's about this owner, because this owner was the most conspicuous presence as an owner in opposition to the position that Colin Kaepernick and those who supported him had taken. So because Jerry Jones was that individual and he has a penchant for being magnetized by the camera, he's always willing to speak. He always has something to say. The fact that he is conspicuously absent at this moment in time is incredibly alarming. Because to me, this is when you should hear from Jerry Jones as well. If this were somebody that owned the Chicago Bears or the Detroit Lions or somebody like that, it would be entirely different. But Jerry Jones is not just an owner. He is one of the preeminent faces associated with the National Football League. He happens to own the team you play for. And your position is, who cares? Why do we need to hear from Jerry? We heard from Jerry when it came to restricting what y'all would do in terms of as players, as a team who obviously is willing to come out now and talk about how supportive you are of Colin Kaepernick and some of the things that he was saying, who obviously is in support of what the community at large, meaning the African-American community, is aiming towards right now. So if that's what's going on right now, and Jerry Jones' verbiage was indicative of somebody who would be opposed to such things, the fact that this is going on now, we need to hear from him. I don't care what Jerry Jones has to say as much as I care about the fact that he chooses not to say something at this particular moment in time, where ever since he came into the league in the late 80s, early 90s, when you had Jimmy Johnson as your coach, and then Barry Switzer, and Lord knows who else followed, the Chan Gailey's of the world, and everybody else. I mean, you know, you got to be Wade Phillips and others, and Jason Garrett. We've always heard from Jerry Jones. What's the silence about now? I don't want to hear an answer from one of his players. I want to hear from him, because we heard from him with everything else.
Jerry Jones inspires a lot of loyalty in his personal relationships, it seems to me, Stephen A. Players who have played for the Cowboys generally say good things about Jerry Jones to me. They seem to like him, and I think that's part of what's going on here. Whenever this issue comes up, there are two sides that you hear on political talk shows and anytime the debate is kind of made public, because we understand things in this kind of binary way, this side and that side. And these are the 2 points. And usually it breaks down along kind of ideological lines. So on the left, you'll hear a lot about structural racism. And on the right, you'll hear a lot about personal responsibility. And let's even get rid of the political distinctions or the ideological distinctions. People generally just individually have that kind of feeling. There's the kind of structural problem, and there's the individual responsibility issue. And I am sensitive to the idea that when someone brings up individual responsibility, everyone throws up their hands. Oh, my God, it's not about that. But certainly, surely, there's a time and a place to bring that up publicly, and that is part of the puzzle. So I don't want to jump on a player, be he black or white, for talking about personal responsibility and community responsibility. But in fact, because this relates directly to what we're talking about, that is never as important as structural issues, structural racism. And when a player talks about, well, what can these white owners do essentially? Well, if they benefit from the status quo and they want to keep the status quo in place, then that is a structural problem. In fact, they can aid in the changing of the structure. It's not as though black people, Stephen A., wound up in a bad situation of choice. They were taken here in chains, as everyone well knows. And even after the Emancipation Proclamation, Southern states were largely left to decide how the laws that apply to the former slaves, and they essentially erected institutions and laws meant to essentially keep them as slaves and create a permanent underclass. So to say these years later, now that people are finally having an open, honest, public conversation about this and day of reckoning about this, to say, well, these white billionaires who are part of the status quo and the structure can't really help us other than to give us money. It's up to us to build our communities.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.